Welcome. We're glad to have each one of you here tonight, and I am pleased to introduce our special guests to you and ask that they please stand as they are introduced so that you can identify a name and a face, okay? Especially the first one. Our new superintendent, Dr. Rodney Peterson. Now you can see. And our interim superintendent, who's spreading the rumor that we fired him, Dr. Tom Daly. We have representatives tonight from the press and the media. Maria Grandi from the Courier Times, who is our education reporter. And David Bratcher from Roxborough Broadcasting, who will be filming tonight, and if any of you want a copy of that, if you call the radio station, they will be glad to make you one for a small fee. We have our board members with us tonight. First of all, Ms. Frida Tillman, the Vice Chair. Kay Allen. Harriet Tillett, and Philip Gillis and his wife Beth. I won't call all the names of the principals, but the principals of all of our candidates are here tonight. If you would please stand if you were one of the principals. Current Teacher of the Year candidates, if you would please stand. Members of our Central Services team. The past Person County Teachers of the Year, and if you'll stand and remain standing for just a second. Past Person County Teachers of the Year. And among this group is Maggie Witt, who was our very first Teacher of the Year. Gordon Powell, who has served as a Board of Education member and is now one of our county commissioners. Wendy Staskowitz, who is one of our Central Services representatives here tonight as our secondary director. Is that what we call you? And Paula Chandler, who is her she's a partner in crime. She's the elementary person, okay? Lindsay Hubbard, Elizabeth Sennett, and our outgoing Teacher of the Year, Danielle Green. Oh, Heather is here. Okay, Heather Bowling. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. We're honored to have all of you with us tonight and proud that you have been a part of the family of Person County Schools and a part of the elite group of Person County Teachers of the Year and have gone on to serve us in other ways in Person County. Our special guest tonight, who will be our speaker, Bobby Kavner, who is the North Carolina Teacher of the Year. And of course, I just mentioned Danielle Green, who is our current Teacher of the Year, who will be retiring tonight. And a brand new beginning Teacher of Excellence that was named just a couple of hours ago, Megan Davis. We are grateful that each of you has joined us tonight. And I welcome you to your celebration, and I thank you so much for being a teacher. I thank you for being our teachers. I thank you for being teachers for our children. A teacher is a person who believes that children are messengers that we send to a time that we will not see. You truly, truly touch the future. You will, in many cases, never know the things that your children will accomplish in their lifetime. I want you to remember that you do so much more than just teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic. While that might be what we pay you for, that's really not what you're going to be remembered for. What you will be remembered for is quite different. In fact, you're probably here tonight not because of test scores, but for the gifts that you have given our children. You heard this afternoon in the beginning, teachers, if you were there, and you will hear again tonight, the comments of what your children say about you and what they will remember about you. If you look back at who your teachers were, what would you say about the teachers who made a difference in your life? If you were my teachers, I would say to you that I thank you for showing me imagination, creativity, enthusiasm, determination. I thank you for having a Band-Aid in your desk drawer. I thank you for having a safety pin in your pocket. They come in handy. I thank you for helping me learn that life is made up of a series of pop quizzes that I may or may not be ready for, but you've given me the courage and the strength to be there for them. I thank you for introducing me to new friends, Sam I Am, Curious George, Jane Eyre, and Harry Potter. I thank you for showing me your passion for what you do, even if it happened to be not my personal favorite. I thank you for making me learn it by heart. I thank you for hearing me and keeping me safe. I thank you for second chances. And I thank you for stretching me to be all that I could. I will remember you. I will take you on the rest of my journey. And I am better for having known you in my life. Welcome to your celebration. You are very special. We are glad that you are here. You are a part of what makes it better in person. Thank you.
Again, I would like to congratulate each one of you that have been selected by your school as Teacher of the Year, and happy Teacher Appreciation Week. From one teacher to another, I know that teaching is an increasingly demanding job, but teaching continues to be the best job in the world. I want to say thank you for the commitment to these students that you see each day, for your tireless hours, your dedication, your efforts, to make sure that your child has access to the kind of education that can change and prepare him or her for the 21st century. To paraphrase a very famous quote that I like, teaching is a noble profession that shapes the character, the caliber, and future of an individual. So as you know, this week is Teacher Appreciation Week, and this morning, if you're an elementary teacher, you can identify with me. I had this little boy to come in. He was really excited because he had this card for me. And he was really excited. He said, you got to open it up. You have to open it up. So I did. He had a little note that he had written me about how much he loved me, and he was thanking me for everything I did. But he had a little gift on the inside, and this is what was most touching, the necklace that I'm going to wear tomorrow. It says, you are capable of great things, and because of that, I am capable of great things. And I thought it was just so sweet. So again, I want to congratulate you and let you know that each one of you is a winner tonight, and all because that you are a teacher. Please pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, tonight we're going to take this opportunity to come together to recognize and celebrate with those who have been chosen by their co-workers to represent their school as Teacher of the Year. Please continue to bless each and every teacher who is making a difference in the classroom and elevating the minds of all students. Thank you for the food that we're about to receive, that it continues to nourish and strengthen our bodies so that we can do thy service. For these things and all other blessings we ask in thy name. Amen.
been served, and please continue eating, but we are going to go ahead and proceed with our program, if that's okay. Before I introduce our keynote speaker, please join me in celebrating Mrs. Danielle Green, Person County Schools Teacher of the Year 2016-17. To give those of you who do not know Danielle a little bit of a background, Danielle is a music teacher at Helena Elementary and is Person County Schools' current Teacher of the Year. She believes that she is meant to use music to make a difference in the world, not just in her own life, but in the lives of others as well. In her classroom, she is providing solid music instruction to build 21st century skills that will foster individuality and produce an environment of thinkers. She states, "My students amaze me every day and have endless potential. I feel like I am helping to positively shape and mold the next generation by exposing them to quality music instruction, and I do so with pride. Being a teacher isn't just a job. It is part of me, and I'm blessed to be able to get to do this every day." We have been fortunate to have her as Person County Schools Teacher of the Year. We are honored to have Mrs. Green share with us after our guest speaker. Thank you, Danielle. Tonight, what an honor to have in Person County Mr. Bobby Kavnar, North Carolina's Teacher of the Year 2016-2017. Mr. Kavnar received a Bachelor of Science in English Education from Florida State University in 1999. English people always scare me as a math teacher. He taught English and journalism for 4 years in the Fort Lauderdale area before moving to North Carolina, where he has been an advanced placement literature teacher, which scares me even more, and English department chair at South Point High School in Gaston County. And that has been for the past 13 years. In 2011, he earned a Master of Arts in English from the University of Carolina at Charlotte. Mr. Kavnar frequently conducts both local and state level workshops for his teachers. He is a 5-time recipient of his school's Most Inspirational Educator Award, which is voted on by his students. He is also a North Carolina State University, go Pack, Inspirational Teacher of the Year, Gaston County Schools Teacher of the Year, and 2016 Southwest Region Teacher of the Year. He was named 2016-17 North Carolina Teacher of the Year last April. Please join me in welcoming Bobby to the stage.
Well, hello. If I'd known that was the picture you were going to use, I would have worn a different suit. I feel bad. I do own more than one suit now. May not have before. Well, hi, I'm Bobby Kavnar, and more than anything else, I'm a teacher, and I've always been a teacher. It was my first job out of college, and hopefully will be my last job. I love it. I just love being a teacher, and I can't wait to get back into my classroom, because I spend a year now traveling the state and speaking on behalf of you. So what I'd like to say to the whole room before I start my remarks is, if there's anything you see in this state that you think is headed in the wrong direction or the right direction, or something you think our leaders need to hear, will you please drop me a line? My email address is just my name at Gmail, bobbykavnar@gmail, or go to my website, bobbykavnar.com. There's a trend here. You can tweet me at Bobby Kavnar. Whatever you need to do, get a hold of me and tell me, because I want to be your voice, and I'll be on the state school board for the next couple of years. You know, in the 17 years I've been teaching, I've heard hundreds of speeches by teachers. You know, we all have, and they're usually a story about a child who touched our lives or taught us something. There's stories about how we changed the life of someone by building a relationship. There's stories about a child in need, a child in mourning, a child suffering, and the way a community came together to help that child. These are the stories that abound in public education, and we've all heard them 1,000 times, and that's because they've happened 1,000 times. They happen every single year. And there are 2,524 public schools in North Carolina, and every one of those schools, there are thousands of teachers across the state who have these stories. Well, I'm not going to tell you one of those, because you already know them. I don't have to tell them to you. Instead, I'd like to tell you a little something different. And it's the story of my family. and what our nation has done for them. My grandfather was named Kutaro Nishimura, and he was a samurai in Japan. I know, I don't look like it, but it's true. My great-grandfather, Kutaro Nishimura, immigrated to America in 1905. In Japan, he was from a noble samurai family, a family with wealth and connections. He graduated from a university, but Japan was changing rapidly in this time, and Kutaro soon found, as many Japanese did, that for young and hardworking people, America offered opportunities that his country did not. And so my great-grandfather, of noble birth and college-educated, started his life over in Nebraska. And he worked as a chauffeur for a wealthy family. And he had nothing with him but the promise that America offered. Well, working for that family was another immigrant. Her name was Luisa, and she was a maid for the family, and she was from Spain. And he spoke no Spanish, and she spoke no Japanese, and neither spoke English. But somehow they got married. Yeah, we'll figure that one out. So they got married and they bought some land in Oklahoma, and they raised 8 children there on a small farm in Oklahoma. They struggled through the hardships of the Great Depression, and they built a reputation in their town. There's an article written about them in the Cushing, Oklahoma newspaper, and it says, "Their radishes were carefully sorted and all of a size, tied in neat bundles, shiny, red, and clean. Their cantaloupes, golden meated, were wrapped in tissues, and their tomatoes likewise." And the groceryman paid the Nishimuras a few cents more on every bunch of vegetables because the public liked them better and would pay more in turn. Naturally, the Nishimuras prospered. The Nishimuras were more than mere moneymakers. Their children went to public school and to church. They took part in community activities. They wore good American clothing. They were immaculately neat and had a cheerful, ready smile, which indicated their inward well-being. This article is one of my family's favorite pieces of personal history. For one, because it's written by a reporter seeking to defend my family from accusations that so many Japanese faced during World War II. And it also reminds us all of the 3 core principles that my family was built on. First, that the promise of opportunity freely given with open arms to all people is the greatest gift our nation has to offer. Second, that public education is the means by which our nation keeps that promise. It is the means, that we keep the promise of American opportunity. And third, that is the duty of those of us who have benefited and succeeded because of that opportunity to ensure that all in this great nation are provided those same opportunities. From time to time, as a very small child, my father would quote Horace Mann, that great educator, who said, "You should be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity." Tell that to a 5-year-old. My father was a very serious man. Be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity. Now, that's a lot to lay on an elementary school kid, but my father meant it. He expected great things from us, and he taught by example. He founded a company that does charitable work in 38 countries around the world and devoted his life to the service of others. And it was a tall order, but it's one that's always guided my life. I have benefited immensely from great teachers and great schools, and I'm thankful for this. But I also recognize the debt that I owe because of it. I believe it's the debt of those of us who were given so many opportunities to work to ensure that all children are offered equally those same opportunities for generations to come. Service is a duty in my family, and I chose my career because of what I believed in, one in which I believe I could serve our nation in a vital way. And that's by offering children the promise of opportunity that my family was offered almost 100 years ago. In a letter to his son's teacher, Abraham Lincoln wrote, "To live in this world will require faith and love and courage. So world, I wish you would sort of take him by his young hand and teach him the things he will have to know. Teach him, but gently if you can." Like so many parents and teachers, Lincoln was keenly aware that this world is often no place for children. Earlier today, I talked about being good to children amongst the new teachers. And something we forget, that level of kindness. The things that our children need to know to survive in this world are often dark and sad. They're often pessimistic. But in that same letter, Lincoln urges his son's teacher to teach him that for every scoundrel there is a hero, that for every crooked politician there is a dedicated leader. Teach him that for every enemy there is a friend. Lincoln believes that we do not have to steal a bit of innocence for every ounce of experience we give our children of a grown-up world. There's a promise, it's written into the founding documents of our nation, that we will all have a fair shot. That's the promise of America when you boil it down. Everyone gets a fair shot. The truth, though, is that life isn't fair, and it's not equal. It's not just. Everyone doesn't get a fair shot. You tell a little girl who grows up in Detroit and can't drink the water that comes out of her tap that she's getting a fair shot. You tell a little boy who lives in my hometown of Belmont, whose family's well is poisoned by coal ash, that he's getting a fair shot. It's not fair. It's not equal. And so, what do? Well, we teach. Because we are the keepers of America's promise of opportunity. Public education can be the one thing that's truly fair and equal in a child's life. No, we can't fix their parents. We can't fix what they're born with. We can't fix what they're born from. We can't fix their pipes. But we can offer one fair, equal, just thing in their lives, and that's a high-quality education for every child. That's the promise of American opportunity. We are the keepers of America's promise, and we, in this room, we serve by keeping America's promise of equality and opportunity. We are the promise keepers. Each of us must choose to be either scoundrel or hero, to be either crooked politician or dedicated leader, to be enemy or friend. We must choose faith and love and courage most of all. Because you have to be fearless. You have to be fearless to stare into the face of poverty and inequality and mental and physical disability, bigotry, hatred, and the 1,000 other injustices that children in our state are heir to. You have to be fearless to stare into the face of these and not back down. You have to be fearless to teach public school. Because we are the front line in the fight for children. You have to be fearless to do what you knew to be right for children, even above your own interests. I asked earlier the new teachers, and I'll ask it in this room also. Teachers in the room, how many of you have been told not to do this job, not to teach? How often are you told to leave the classroom? Do you know how often I've answered the question? It's the number one question anyone asks me when I won State Teacher of the Year is, so now what are you going to do? What do you do next? Now you're not in that classroom. You can leave the class. As if I'd been trapped there all these years. Just wasting away. So I want to say thank you to teachers in this room. Thank you for having the guts to stick with your passion even when all around you tried to convince you to take a safer path. I want to say to all of you, thank you, and please don't back down. People tell me, so are you going to leave teaching? And I always say, not without a fight. Abraham Lincoln, in that letter about his son to his child's teacher, said, only the test of fire makes strong steel. Well, we're in our test of fire, but we can be stronger as a teaching profession because we have survived that test of fire. Thank you.
Well, good evening. I'm Danielle. I wore heels tonight because I'm not very tall, and I'm the perfect height for this podium, unlike earlier this summer when I was down here. But But thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to be here with you. And I'd like to take a moment and just welcome you tonight to this wonderful occasion to recognize and celebrate some of the most phenomenal educators here in Person County. Thank you for being here with us tonight, and congratulations on being selected by your peers to represent your school as Teacher of the Year. Like Ms. Stacy said earlier, I teach music at Helena Elementary, and I've been blessed to work here in Person County for the last 6 years. It has been such a great honor this past year to be your representative as Person County Teacher of the Year, but tonight I'm very excited to pass along such an exciting opportunity to one of you here in this room. Having the opportunity to visit your classrooms, read your compelling words about teaching, and sit in on your interviews and talk with each of you was such an incredible experience for me. One that was so inspiring, I would like to share some of those moments with you all tonight, just to give you a glimpse into the greatness that I observed. Even though my words cannot come close to describing this greatness that each of you possess, I want you to know how wonderful you are from my eyes. So I'm going to start with a teacher who is very special to me. That's Miss Susan Hess. Susan's classroom was the first on our tour that day because she teaches right next door to me at Helena. And little did she know, I had been hiding in the library all morning, just so she wouldn't know I was there, and I didn't want her to suspect anything. She kept saying, I think you being there will make me the most nervous. I just didn't want to make her nervous. But I mean, we are neighbors, and she's definitely my work bestie. But it has been a rare occasion when we actually see each other teach because our schedules are almost identical. Susan, I just want to say that I was so excited to visit your art room that day and to be able to see you from that perspective. I see what you do behind the scenes to prepare these awesome lessons and activities for your students, and I couldn't wait to check one of them out. I have so much respect for you personally and for what you do with our students every day. On the day I came to her classroom, Susan was teaching a lesson about how to create art that shows movement and repetition that she created completely on her own. Her students were creating drawings of their wild things based on the book Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak, one of my favorites, by the way. So she was teaching art through movement, through literacy, through history, and through culture, and through music. She was teaching the kids how to write. She integrated so many other subjects, it was absolutely amazing. Our kids love going to art class with Ms. Hess, and she truly nurtures every one of them to reach their greatest potential. Thank you for being the teacher that you are and my friend, who I can say is the person that I come to as my mentor when I need an adult to talk to that is way more adultier than me. Our next stop was to visit Mr. Fifield, who teaches 5th grade at South Elementary. He's put his hand up over his face. Let me just start by saying I felt so comfortable in your room that day. The energy is so calming. Mr. Fifield was teaching a science lesson and was going over light versus heat. One thing I observed that I really loved was how he incorporated class discussion during his lesson. Many of us find ourselves going over material that we have to get through with our kids, and before we know it, we've done all the talking and not allowed for our students to explore that social learning style. Mr. Fifield has his kids talking with their partners and sharing their answers with the class in a discussion where every student feels comfortable to speak up and participate. There is such an incredibly high level of respect between Mr. Fifield and his students. He listens to his kids and responds where needed to make sure they are getting the best possible educational experience. He knows how to be compassionate with his students. In your interview, the last thing that you said really stuck with me and touched my heart. We asked him what his message would be if he was selected as North Carolina Teacher of the Year, and he said to promote that schools provide emotional support for the kids. He said that he felt like his school did this well and that his kids wanted to come to school. Well, Mr. Fifield, your classroom is one of those classrooms that is a true indication of devoted emotional support for your kids. It's evident that they indeed love coming to school because of teachers like you. Thank you, Mr. Fifield, for being the supportive teacher that you are. Then we come to one of Southern Middle School's finest, Sharon Harris. I've known Sharon for a long time, since I've started working for Person County Schools. She was at Helena a lot when I first started working there. You are such a sweet-natured, genuinely kind person that the kids all flock to when you're around. When we walked into Sharon's classroom to observe, I remember hearing, "That's my old music teacher, Miss Green." And it was so incredible to see some of my old students in her room continuing to let their creativity shine through the arts. You know, for some children, the arts are where they succeed the most, and I observed a high level of student success that day as I walked around looking at their beautiful drawings. Ms. Harris was teaching a lesson on value, one of the elements of art, which means the lightness and darkness of tones and colors. Did I get that right? Ms. Harris? Amanda, did I get that right? Just seeing them create and expressing themselves made me want to sit down and do the same. When you walk into Sharon's room, you can just tell that her kids are very aware of her expectations, and they know how to complete their work and what materials to use because she is consistent. Her students were calm and focused and working diligently the whole time I was there. You indeed are a patient soul. One thing that Sharon said in her interview that stuck with me is you've got to love them. When she was asked what her message would be, she said that. She said you've got to love them and love what you do. Always be completely invested. Thank you, Sharon, for being that teacher who truly believes in the power of unconditional love. Now, this next teacher, I have to say, is indeed the best multitasker, she knows I'm talking about her, I think I have ever seen in my life. So teaching kindergarten is not for the weak, and Takima Ricks is a prime example of a strong kindergarten teacher. When we walked into her room that day, the kids' faces just lit up knowing that there were visitors there to see them. They all had something they wanted to tell us as we walked in the door, and hearing their little stories and comments just made my day. The kids were finishing up their work and about to start their math lesson for the day. Ms. Ricks started with an excellent strategy to get the kids excited about math, and I give this strategy an A+ because she played music for them. You didn't know I was a music teacher when I walked in that day, right? So now is the time that I go back to my first statement about Takima. You know, the one where I said she's a really good multitasker? Well, all while this song is playing, and mind you, she was fully participating in the song herself, she took a child to the bathroom while holding another child by the hand who was having a hard time with directions, and reached her other hand under the table to where there was a child crawling under the table, all continuing to sing and dance and monitor the other students in her classroom. And it sounds like a scene from Kindergarten Cop, but it was not. It was just so smooth. You know, when I said kindergarten wasn't for the weak, well, now you know why. Everything flowed so well, and when the song was over, all the kids sat down quietly on the carpet, and she began teaching them how to decompose numbers. Like, seriously, decomposing numbers in kindergarten? It was great. There is so much value in teaching kids how to see the groupings, relationships, and patterns in numbers. Overall, Ms. Ricks, you know how to meet the needs of your kids. You realize that even some challenges that may seem small to us, they are huge for your kids in your classroom, and you know how to help them through those challenges in order to be successful. Your display of true emotion during your interview shows that you love your kids so very much and you would do anything to get them where they need to be. Everything you do benefits your children. Thank you, Takima, for being the teacher that always puts the kids first. So the last classroom that we visited on that first day didn't seem much like a classroom, but like a cozy little world of reading. I'm trying to see if he's back there. When I walked into Doug Glenning's Media Center, I just wanted to curl up in the corner with a good book. It was so inviting, and the kids were so eager to sit down for your lesson that day. We walked in as the kids were checking out their books and going to their seats to begin class. I sat at a table with two little boys who were very excited to show me the books that they had checked out. I remember asking them what they liked about coming to Mr. Glenning's class, and one of the little boys said, "He's cool." So now, for those of you who don't understand the power of these words, when a second grader says you're cool, that means you're definitely one of their favorites. Mr. Glenning was teaching a lesson about how to recognize unfamiliar words in text by looking for context clues. Kids were involved in wonderful conversations throughout the time we were there, and I just loved how you make connections between your vocabulary instruction and words they are learning in their classrooms. As a teacher, we think that if we know our content well enough that we can just coerce our kids into getting it. Well, that simply isn't the case at all. Mr. Glenning is a prime example of how to truly be flexible and use your bag of tricks well. He read a passage from a book that required the kids to use context clues to recognize the word herd, like a herd of cattle. The kids were trying very hard to decipher the meaning of this word and honestly had some really, really great answers, but not exactly the right ones. So Mr. Glenning quickly introduced a new strategy to help them understand. It was at this point that you could see the kids were about to have that aha moment and truly understand. Overall, this classroom felt so warm and welcoming. All the material taught that day was connected wonderfully and made sense. Thank you, Mr. Glenning, for being that teacher who encourages and instills the love of reading and teaches children to value their own education. The next day, we headed to Person High School bright and early to visit David Jones in his ag mechanics class. Let me just tell you that if I had known how much a class like this would have prepared me for real-world experiences when I was in high school, I would have taken ag mechanics in a heartbeat. Mr. Jones, you are doing so many amazing things with your students. It is simply incredible. When we walked in, the kids were all taking their seats to listen to instructions before they began their task for the day. And at that time, the bell hadn't quite sounded, and Mr. Jones hadn't walked in yet. This was our perfect opportunity to get some info from his students. Kids are pretty honest about things, like whether or not they like a teacher, especially at the high school age. He's giving me the look over there. So right before he walked in, Miss Stacy asked the kids, she said, "What do you guys like about Mr. Jones?" And the first student said, "He breaks everything down for us so I can really understand." You know, everything step by step so he can really understand. The next student chimed in and said, "Because we can talk to him about anything. He's not just a teacher to us, he's someone we can trust." And that trust word, that's a big, big word. I don't have experience teaching high school myself, but I have once been a teenager, and I know gaining one's trust is a very complicated task. Your kids were very eager to give you praise, Mr. Jones. I can tell they really love and appreciate you. So David walks in and begins his lesson for the day. He was going over how to properly remove 16-year-old boards from a trailer that was sitting in the shop next door. Even though I had no clue what tools they were using or what size screws they would need to reassemble this trailer, I could have stayed in his classroom all day and listened to him teach. So my husband, John, works for Lowe's, and he couldn't be here with us tonight because he's not feeling too well. But he's an interior designer and has done construction his whole life. He's the handyman around the house, and our daughter always says, "Daddy, you could fix anything." But Mr. Jones, I can confidently say that if I had the chance to be one of your students, even with my lack of skills, I too could be an equal handywoman around my house and could maybe give my husband a run for his money. But David's class is so much more than this. His kids are involved in so many activities like building volunteer ag district signs, FFA events, and taking care of the school's extensive greenhouse. I simply do not know how he does it all and does it all so incredibly well. One of his students offered to take us to see the greenhouse, which is a project that Mr. Jones' classes take care of every year. She was so proud to take us out there to see it. In the greenhouse, they grow all kinds of things that they later sell to the community as a fundraiser to help the program continue each year. This was very cool. Mr. Jones, I love your commitment to your students and your community. Thank you for being the teacher that kids are eager to see each day. You are certainly where you need to be. Then we were off to visit Miss Ann Nelson. There she goes. I like to make eye contact with you guys when I'm talking about you, At Northern Middle School, I didn't know who Ann was until this day. I say this because as we were waiting for classes to change so we could go into her classroom, we were standing in the hall waiting for the kids to disperse where they needed to be. As we stood there waiting, I observed this group of middle school boys, doing what middle school boys do the best. They were just cutting up, being silly. Look, she's putting her head down. She knows what I'm about to say. Well, we all know they were supposed to be somewhere else. So, and then out of nowhere, you see this teacher just walk up and get right in the middle of their little circle, and as quick as you could blink your eyes, they just were gone. And I looked at Miss Scruggs and I said, "Wow, did you see how quickly she got those students back on track?" Well, little did I know that was Ann Nelson doing that. And you were one of those teachers that walks into a room and everyone stops to listen because they know that what you were about to say is important and worth hearing. Her students were discussing their thoughts about Wegener's theory of continental drift and the once existing supercontinent that he named Pangaea. She asked her students, "How do you think people would react to Wegener's theory today?" And her students led a wonderful discussion about this where they used their prior knowledge to make connections. I love that you have your kids taking control of their learning. Your energy is vibrant and the kids really pay attention to what you say because you're engaged right along with them. After having the chance to talk with you during your interview, I just want to say that you are someone I could sit and talk to all day. Your words are so encouraging and uplifting, especially when you speak about all that you have done to make sure all of your kids, even your own children, succeed. Your commitment to your students is evident. Your willingness to wear many hats and your insight to see the things you need to know to help your kids get where they need to be is inspiring. Thank you for being the teacher that believes all students can learn and that all students will learn. Now, I've always said that if I had chosen to be a classroom teacher that I would enjoy first grade. Don't I say that? I do say that, right? I teach kindergarten through 5th grade, and I love what I do because I get to connect with different age groups. But there's something about first grade that I'm just fascinated with. Kids that age are little sponges. So when I realized I was getting to go into a first grade classroom, I was very excited. Care Bose, your first grade classroom was so interesting to me. I would have loved to stay longer and hang out with you for sure. When we arrived, Ms. Bose was doing an ELA lesson with her class, and they were doing centers. I feel like if I'd had that many things going on in my classroom at once, that it would have been very hectic. But no, not in Care's classroom. Everything was calm, the kids were working very well, and each person involved knew what they were doing because CARE had taught them how. See, after talking with you during your interview and seeing some of the wonderful things you wrote, I knew that you were a natural mentor and would help anyone to do their absolute best. That's why you were a great teacher. You value your colleagues as family, treat all of your children like your own, and show tremendous strength in building positive relationships with others around you. I wrote down before we left, classroom environment very inviting, and Ms. Bose is very positive and sweet to all students. After talking to you, I could not have been more right. You are a genuinely sweet person who takes pride in her community and building relationships. You said in your interview, kids have bright futures. We need to do what we can to get them there. Thank you for being the teacher that works as part of a village to ensure that our students truly succeed and have bright futures. So after we left one little school out in the country, we were headed to the next little school out in the country to visit this next fantastic 5th grade teacher. Sabrina Crumpton, your classroom was full of creativity that day. When we walked in, Ms. Crumpton was going over guidelines for writing a short story. She was very clear on the expectations for her story to the point that I feel like I could have sat down right with them and known exactly what to do. Sabrina kind of perched herself amongst her students while having such an important classroom discussion, so it didn't feel like a lecture, it felt like a conversation between her and her students. Her kids were so eager to answer questions, throwing their hands up in the air as fast as they could and almost coming out of their seats to tell us their thoughts. It was amazing. She explained to her students that when they read their stories aloud to the kindergarten and 1st grade students, that it was extremely important for them to read with enthusiasm in order to keep the attention of such a young audience. So in order to practice these skills, she asked several students to volunteer reading the first 2 pages of their stories aloud for the class. Let me just say, those stories were so good. I bet they turned out really, really well. In your interview, I loved how you said that one of your strengths was how hard you worked and how serious you took your job, but you still understood how to simultaneously be a friend and an educator to your kids. This is evident. They truly love you. I can tell just by visiting your classroom and talking with you that you value teaching your students to understand why we do things, not just how we do things. You value teaching them how they can apply these concepts and skills that they learn in your classroom and how it will benefit them. Thank you for being the teacher that helps your students take what they learn from you and make it meaningful in their own lives. Lastly, we went to visit Amanda Bito's art room. This is a classroom I have been to before, so I was quite excited to see Amanda teach. I've been one of her students on many occasions when she has led numerous professional development sessions here for the county, so I was only expecting the coolest lesson when I got there. First of all, if you have never been in Miss Vito's room, it is the coolest. To her little hot pink metal chair with a small table and lamp, when you walk into her bulletin boards with clouds and little hot air balloons, Miss Vito's room is an incredible learning space that is very child-friendly and inviting. When we arrived that day, the students were working on learning about the color wheel and how primary colors made secondary colors, which made tertiary colors. She taught this concept by having her students paint their own color wheel, one level of color at a time. I really, really wanted to paint that day after being in your classroom, and they can, attest to that. I said, I really want to stay and paint. My art skills are pretty lacking, but I do love to paint. There's something about it that takes a lot of focus, but good relaxing focus that helps you to concentrate on that one task and make it your best. Being a fine arts teacher myself, I find this very important when relating it to how your students use their brains in your classroom. Deep within the brain lies the visual cortex, which is stimulated through viewing and creating visual arts. Your kids work so well in this activity. You are a naturally soft-spoken person, and I can relate because so am I. Your kids have realized that it is an expectation of yours for them to tune in when they hear your voice. When you spoke, all went quiet and your kids listened. In your interview, we talked a lot about your story of how you became a teacher and how you moved here to Person County from Pennsylvania to pursue your dream to be a teacher, and I found that very inspiring. You said at the end of your interview that being able to look back on your own path and know that you can make it and achieve your dreams, even if it seems impossible, would be your message as North Carolina Teacher of the Year. Thank you for being the teacher that teaches your students they can achieve their dreams through dedicated hard work and perseverance. Last year, I sat right over there at that table, and you could just feel the positivity in the room as each person was being recognized. I feel that way as I stand here tonight. I can tell that each and every one of you absolutely love what you do and wouldn't trade it for the world. The influences you make on the children you teach each day extends much further than a room with 4 walls. Even though only one person tonight will actually be named Teacher of the Year, just remember that each of you in this room has something special, and you're all true winners in the eyes of those that matter the most, your kids. I just want to take this time to tell you thank you again. I often tell myself that I didn't choose to be a teacher, teaching chose me. Thank you for letting teaching choose you. Thank you for everything that you give to Person County and to the students that you see each and every day. It fills my heart with joy to know that I'm surrounded by such amazing educators, for one day, far too soon from now, my own daughter will be walking through those school doors to begin her road to excellence. And I know that with the true passion that we have for education here in Person County, her, along with every other student that we serve, will get nothing less than that. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Bobby, and thank you, Danielle. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Before we go any farther in the program, I do want to recognize Megan Davis tonight. She was, as stated at the beginning, as our beginning teacher of excellence this year. So let me tell you a little bit about Megan for those of you who don't know. Megan is a first-year teacher, and I think it's really cool about her story is that she did start as a teacher assistant last year, and then this year she is a lateral entry elementary teacher, which used to be unheard of, but is doing an excellent job. So I'm just so proud of Megan. Amy Seat, principal, states, Megan is not afraid to try new things and has embraced high-yield strategies, team planning, data-driven instruction, and so much more. She is operating in the classroom as if she's been teaching for years. She has truly learned to soar with the best teachers in the building, and I am completely blown away day after day by her instruction and her care for students. She is an asset to the field of education and has a true talent and a strong passion for teaching. Amy is extremely honored to work with her, and we are blessed to have her as part of our Oak Lane family. I did ask tonight her husband, I said, does she ever not smile? Because it is just beautiful. Beautiful, you just light up a room. So y'all, please stand, Megan, and let's give her a round of applause again. I do want to take a moment to, these kinds of things don't just fall into place very easily. I know all of the logistics because I used to do them, but now I've sort of let go of those reins. And Tracy has organized the schedules for observations, and Kathy has been her right hand and setting this up. So just thank you for organizing. I know the time and details that go into that. I also want to take time to recognize the spouses, because I know how many hours teachers spend on lesson planning, gate duty. I could just go on and on and on. So spouses, thank you for being here tonight and giving of your time to allow your spouse to do what they do each day in our classroom and in our schools. Thank you. Now, finally, to the main event. So this year, and those of you who have been in attendance to these things, I don't think you've ever heard me say this. We could have taken any 10 of these and been, we're great, Teacher of the Year, any 10. So it was the toughest decision I think that the committee has ever had to make. And I do want to thank the committee too. Thank you for your time and observing, because it's actually a little bit selfish because it's a great time, but thank you. It was tough. Thank you, principals, for sending your best. We got them. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Throughout the classroom observations and the interviews, I wanted to get little snippets and video some of the words that these teachers said about not only teaching, but about Person County Schools, and I couldn't really video them during their interview, but I really wanted to I can't say enough about how great they are. Okay, so at this time, each school administrator is going to come up and introduce his or her Teacher of the Year. And with that, the teacher will come up, and Mrs. Bradshaw will hand you your certificate. And I'll ask our board members if you will stand along in a sort of like a receiving line. And Dr. Daly and Dr. Peterson, if you also would join us with this, and we'll get a photo op. Does that make sense? All right, come on up. And after the dinner, if all Teachers of the Year will remain for a couple of photographs also. Okay. You're up, Crystal.
Okay.
I too wore my heels like Danielle, but it really didn't help me. So, I have had the pleasure of working with many of the nominees here tonight. As I went through the program, I think we came up with like 5 that I've worked with over the years. So that speaks volumes about you, that you have dedicated your time to Person County Schools. They should be very proud to sit here. They're in great company. We are very proud of you, and every one of you are truly deserving of this honor. But I have the honor tonight to introduce Helena's Teacher of the Year. She has a true passion for teaching art. She understands the connections between arts and academics, and she works hard to ensure that each of her students leave that classroom believing that they are an artist. Each of their projects are unique and special. I can assure you that Helena Elementary would be a very different place if it were not for Susan Hess being part of our team. We are proud to call her a member of our Helena family, and we are extremely proud to have her as part of Helena.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce Takima Ricks as North Elementary School's 2017 Teacher of the Year. Ms. Ricks has been a kindergarten teacher at North Elementary for 15 years. Last year, she taught me a lesson. The first day of school, a kindergartner used extreme profanity towards Ms. Ricks and others. He was developmentally delayed and speech impaired, and the only words I could understand were his cuss words. So after a few weeks of observing him, I thought that he should be placed in a special program at another school. Ms. Ricks firmly rejected that suggestion, stating that the child learned that behavior at home and it could be unlearned at school. Her determination never wavered, and that student grew tremendously throughout the course of the year. She was right, and she taught me that I should never give up on reaching a student. Takima, you have made a difference in your students' lives every day, and we're blessed at North to have you. Thank you.
Good evening. Tonight I'm honored to have the privilege of introducing North End's Teacher of the Year, Mr. Doug Glennings. Mr. Glennings has served as our media coordinator for the past 3 years, and during this time he has embraced technology and research as the means to prepare our children for the 21st century. And I say that with preference to a little background knowledge. When we interviewed Mr. Glennings 3 years ago, he was in New Jersey, and we asked could he Skype? And he said, sure, I can do that. And so we did the process, we liked him, we hired him, and he came back. When he came to North Carolina, he told us, I had to go next door and ask someone, what's Skype? So needless to say, he has turned out to be one of a really great find and a pleasure for me to announce that he is North End's Teacher of the Year.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure tonight to introduce Miss Ann Nelson as Northern Middle School's Teacher of the Year. Miss Nelson is a constant reminder that the teacher gene is a real thing. I wish that I could clone it and pass it on to everybody. No matter the course or content, Miss Nelson leads students to success. When students need advice, she provides wisdom. When students are angry, confused, or hurt, she provides compassion. When students give less than their best, she reminds them of her expectations. These many roles make her, These many roles make her the hallway mom, even though she can't be more than 25 years old. Her most defining characteristic is her humility. She does not realize how amazing she is or how deserving of this opportunity, of this recognition she is. I do not know what I would have done this year at Northern Middle School, my first year, without her. She has been a mentor. She has been a wearer of many hats and just a guide through what has been a difficult at times year, and I am just so thankful to have her on her staff, and she represents us so well.
Thank you, congratulations.
I would definitely have to second that for Ms. Nelson. My daughter is at Person Early College now, and she credits Ann Nelson to all of her schooling success. So hats off to you from the mother. I have the privilege tonight of introducing Oak Lane's Teacher of the Year, Ms. Care Bowes. The North Star was once a symbol of stability, leadership, and guardianship, a constant that was always present to provide guidance and reassurance. Symbolically, the North Star gives clarity, meaning, and richness. When you find your North Star, you know where you're headed. That alone feels good. And you can dream bigger dreams and take more chances in life, since if you lose your way, you've got a beacon to home in on. That is our Care Bowes. She is a beacon, a lighthouse, guidance for rough seas. She's Oak Lane's North Star.
Congratulations, and thank you for your sweet note.
Good evening, everyone. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to present Person High School's Teacher of the Year. This morning I was trying to think, what can I say in 6 to 8 sentences about David Ag Jones? Will I tell them about his greenhouse? Will I tell them about his projects? Will I tell them about the project that he organized last year to honor all of the past principals of Person High School? Just trying to think. And on the radio came this song in the words of the great Teddy Pendergrass. Wake up all you teachers, time to teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen to what you have to say. When you teach children, teach them the very best you can. These lyrics bring to mind Mr. David Ag Jones. And I say Ag because that's how we identify at the high school. There are 2 David Jones, so we have 1 Ag and 1 Auto. Mr. Jones is so much more than a teacher. He is a mentor, a trainer, a friend, and an example to all who encounter him. He is quiet in his ways, his demeanor, his speech. He doesn't have to be loud at all to get your attention or his students' attention. They just listen like a very captive audience if you're ever able to observe him interacting with them. Mr. Jones is just Mr. Jones, plain and simple. Students who misbehave elsewhere are near angelic in his presence. I liken Mr. Jones' 21 years of teaching to how he cares for the plants. And he plants the seeds and he cares for them and he nurtures them, and that's the same thing he does for students. He cultivates them to grow and to flourish and to see their full potential. Thank you, Mr. Jones.
As already mentioned, we had to keep our phrases brief to 6 to 8 sentences, which makes it hard to do justice to a character such as Mr. Fifield. And I wish I had time to share some funny stories or some of his vices, the snacks you could find in his room. But we don't have time for that, so let me tell the most important things about Mr. Fifield. First, it's a privilege to have the opportunity to come up and recognize such an outstanding teacher who represents South Elementary School. Over the past 4 years, I have gotten to know Mr. Fifield, and it has been a blessing to do so. It would be easy for me to say that Mr. Fifield is a teacher who gets results. Last year, his students demonstrated outstanding academic growth as their science scores grew by 45%, math by 25%, and ELA by 20%. Numbers like this make it easy to recognize that Mr. Fifield has the ability to grow his students academically. His gifts go well beyond growth scores. His true gifts lie in his ability to build quality relationships with students, with parents, and with staff. His gift for making people laugh and his keen ability to recognize when someone is in need of support. Mr. Fifield has been recognized as a quality leader by his peers as he's been elected to serve on both the school leadership team and the school improvement team. Mr. Fifield is able to effectively motivate students who have lost interest in their own education, including one student who stands out in my mind, who I don't think ever passed a test, let alone an EOG. And despite his disability, passed his first EOG last year with the support of Mr. Fifield. His heart, passion, and ability to engage his students gives Mr. Fifield the ability to be a true superhero for the Shooting Stars of South Elementary School.
So as Crystal mentioned a few minutes ago about how she's had the opportunity to work with so many of you here, I also recognize that as I was going through the bulletin, I think there were 4 or 5 people in this room as Teacher of the Year candidates that I've had the opportunity to work with too. And so I just want to say what an honor it is for me to be here tonight among you. because I know how awesome you are as teachers, but also how awesome you are as people as well. Tonight, I do have a very distinct pleasure in that I get to introduce you to Southern's 2017 Teacher of the Year, Ms. Sharon Harris. Ms. Harris is an educator who possesses all the qualities of an outstanding educator. She's well-versed in her content area, able to effectively build relationships with her students, and provides authentic and engaging opportunities for her students. Her dedication to the profession, her desire to always perfect her craft, and her willingness to motivate and grow both her colleagues and her students is a continuous reminder of attributes that have led Ms. Harris to be recognized as our Teacher of the Year. So please join me in congratulating Ms. Sharon Harris as Southern's 2017 Teacher of the Year.
Congratulations.
Good evening. It is such an honor to be here tonight to introduce to you Stories Creek Elementary's representative of Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Amanda Vito. If you look up the word go-getter in the dictionary, I'm sure her picture will be right beside it. She's on the forefront of educational initiatives such as the ASW process. She also did an independent book study on how to improve classroom management in special area classrooms because that was something that she found challenging, and also grant writing to incorporate the A in STEAM. Rarely do you come across someone with so much drive to grow herself professionally, but also never loses sight of the impact that she desires to make on others, from students to colleagues to parents. I always refer to her as our school cheerleader because she always demonstrates a positive attitude and her optimism is contagious. At dinner tonight, she was telling me the story of the marigold and the walnut tree. How many of you have ever heard that story? Google it when we get home tonight. Very touching story. So it's an honor to be her cheerleader tonight and recognize her and celebrate her as Stories Creek Elementary's marigold and our Teacher of the Year.
I am very happy to present Sabrina Crumpton as Woodland's Teacher of the Year. When I notified Sabrina that she was selected by her peers as our Teacher of the Year, I enlisted the help of her class while they were in music one afternoon, and she was not in the room, and I asked them to really quickly come up with some of the things that makes Ms. Crumpton great as a teacher. And then we called her down to the room, and she came down and didn't know what was going on. So I asked the students to kind of go around one by one, and I thought I would share some of the things that were shared by those students. One that stuck out was, she's strict, but she's fair. She makes learning fun. She explains things really well. And then there was a student, a particularly challenging student, one that you could say his reputation precedes him, said, even when we mess up, we know she cares. When I visit Sabrina's classroom, I see these descriptions come to life. High expectations, deep content knowledge, strong relationships, it's all there. And something else happens when I visit Sabrina's classroom. I'm standing there, or I pull out a chair and sit down. I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave, and it's because it just reminds me of the feeling of being in front of a classroom and looking at children's faces when they truly understand something. And that happens so frequently in Sabrina's classroom because of her passion and her dedication. And we at Woodland Elementary are blessed to have her.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be giving my orders. They're good at that. We do want to remind you that for the Teachers of the Year, stay afterwards for a few minutes so that we can get some pictures in terms of doing that. I'm going to go off script for a little bit. I'm fortunate to have been here for the last short period of time to get to know many of you, and I've truly enjoyed it. As you know, as some of us get a little older and we stop working full-time, I tell folks I'm kind of semi-retired. But people ask me what I do for a living, or what I did for a living, probably a better way to put it. And I tell them I'm retired from public education, public schools in North Carolina, and I work part-time doing other stuff, mainly what my dear wife tells me to do at home. And they say, the response I get normally, were you a teacher or a principal? And I said, no, I did some of those things, but by the time I finished, they didn't let me do the important work. And those of you that are sitting here, that are in the classroom, you do the important work. You do the work that makes sure that every child gets the opportunity that we heard about earlier. And we truly appreciate your time, efforts, and energies. Now I get to introduce the folks that we have. We have some small tokens for you in terms of your gifts as we get finished, and we'll hand those out as we get finished. I do want to reemphasize that as that group worked, they had a really hard time picking folks, to the point that we're going to recognize 2 semifinalists tonight and then a finalist in terms of doing it, because they just could not get it down to a final person. Our first semifinalist wrote, I think my greatest contributions are in the relationships that I form with students, colleagues, parents, and the community as a whole. I'm a mentor and I love helping new teachers. I want to help them with everything from learning how to communicate with parents to classroom management to ideas that will enhance their lessons. I wish I had more time to help them grow, because teaching is encouraging others only to help us as a whole. I want them to develop a sense of community, and I want them to stay at our school for their whole career. Please join me in congratulating Carol Bowles of Oak Lane as one of our semifinalists. Our second semifinalist in the application wrote, it's my job as a teacher to help prepare students for their futures. Many students do not realize that there are unlimited career possibilities that lie ahead of them. On the first day of class, I expressed my goal of helping each of them learn how to open their minds to careers they may never have known existed. By believing in all students and teaching the curriculum through real-world skills and problem solving, I can help my students realize that if they can imagine it, they can achieve it. Please join me in congratulating Mr. David Ag Jones of Person High School. Mr. Jones, who's the pocket that part?
You can't catch that one, you can catch that one.
I apologize.
Thank you. Good deal. Good deal. Thank you.
And now for our finalist. This teacher wrote, when I was a student, I had a teacher who was able to see something in me that I was not capable of seeing. She offered me kind words, praise, and patience. She cared about me and took the time to help me when learning was difficult. I remember her telling me that I was smart. That memory has helped me realize that education has done great things for me. Because education has blessed my life so greatly, I do not want to stand in the way of child success. In fact, I want to be able to help my students see themselves as valuable and greatest assets to our society. Great teachers are accepting, receptive, and realize the importance of relationships with students, colleagues, and everyone else. I value all students, embrace the differences they have, and work hard to ensure that everything I do and say conveys this message to them. My success as an educator is greatly influenced by my mindset. I have the ability to see past circumstances and situations that may get me down and come into my building every day and give it my all because it is what my students deserve. I am honored to have been chosen by my peers as my school's Teacher of the Year. Please join us then in recognizing Miss Ann Nelson of Northern Middle School as Person County's Teacher of the Year.
So my senior English teacher, many years ago, taught me always understand the importance of your audience. Understand when you're giving a speech the importance of the audience that you're giving it to. So I look at my audience, and I know what it is. Y'all don't want to stay here any longer listening to me. Right? But I also understand the importance of the audience because I've just spent the last month getting kids ready for a senior exit speech. So I also know the audience that we love education, and guess what we get to do again tomorrow morning, just about 8 o'clock or a little thereafter. We're right back in it, and we're ready to get home. So let me start with just teaching is tough. In North Carolina, it is really tough sometimes. But we keep it together. You know why? Because it's what we do. It is the impossible. And you know why we do the impossible? Because we have to. We don't have any other choice. We have to make it work. Why are we teachers? Because that's what we were meant to do, I guess. In Person County, in case you hadn't noticed it, we do things a little bit differently. You don't believe me? You should have been at the Kirby Saturday night and hear what the students of Person County can do, and you would hear some great music. Look at the beginning teacher of excellence back there, who may or may not have been my yearbook editor and my first ever journalism editor. The academic banquet, both that we had last week and many before, including mine in 1998, when I might have had the band director as my teacher to bring to the academic banquet in 1998. You look at the administrators, the school personnel, look at everybody around the room. A lot of these people grew up in Person County because we do things a little bit differently. So to all the teachers, thank you. To all the school personnel, to everyone, on behalf of Person County Schools, on behalf of the Board of Education, thank you, congratulations, have a good night, and be safe. Thank you.